We're good.
Awesome, thank you. Welcome, everybody. This is the KubeVirt Community Meeting, December 5th, 2018. Looking at the agenda and notes, the first topic to discuss actually came from the mailing list earlier this week, and that was talking about the KubeVirt cloud provider, or proposal there. And I'll let Daniel Gonzalez speak.
Yeah, okay. So to set some context here, what my team and I are doing at the moment is exploring how we can use KubeVirt as a cloud provider for Kubernetes. So basically the idea is to have a bare metal Kubernetes cluster with KubeVirt installed and then provision KubeVirt VMs on top of it and then deploy Kubernetes there again. And as you may know, if you are running a Kubernetes cluster on the cloud like AWS, OpenStack, or I don't know, you typically have a cloud provider that allows you a Kubernetes cluster to talk to the cloud, to initialize nodes, set some labels like the region or the zone the VM is deployed in, the node, and such stuff, or to expose services over load balancers. And what we were trying to do is to develop such a cloud provider for KubeVirt. So basically, this cloud provider allows the Kubernetes cluster running on top of KubeVirt to talk to the Kubernetes cluster running the VMs. Yeah, and I mean, it's at a very early stage at the moment. So it works basically, but I guess or we have to have discussions on how certain things work, how they should be implemented, and so on. And so, in my opinion, it would be great to do the development in the KubeVirt GitHub organization to sync on this. So as you can see, I have posted the link here in the minutes. It's currently living in my personal GitHub page. Yeah.
So the proposal at this point is to host the KubeVirt cloud provider project under the KubeVirt umbrella.
Exactly. And I guess that before we can do that, I mean, the community should have a look at the actual code, maybe do a review, maybe discuss if the implementations that I did are correct, or maybe there are better ways. So under the second link here that I posted in the minutes is a short table that shows the different functions the cloud provider offers and how I implemented them in a very high level way. But yeah, I guess we should have discussions about them, if that's correct. I mean, since we have KubeCon coming up just next week, maybe that's a good opportunity to discuss this stuff.
Yeah, so first, awesome to see that. I mean, it was discussed and there were some prior work done by Roman with the cluster autoscaler. And there's now going on some work by Lutz with the cluster API. So I think, in general, I would love to see that kind of work functionality in the KubeVirt org because it's just so natural that we have it there. We should be able to run Kubernetes if we are running on Kubernetes. The question to me is, which I would like to discuss, do something like that to see, how do we avoid that we duplicate the code in like 20 or in this case 3 repositories or places. So that would be one point I would like to clarify.
Yeah, so I guess we could discuss having some kind of a joint repository or so on. But you have to keep in mind that this cluster API stuff or machine API stuff that Lutz is working on is that's a different kind of functionality that you have here. So I guess still it could make sense to have that in the same repository. So for example, if you're looking at the cloud provider repository for OpenStack, they are hosting many cloud-related projects in the same repository. We could do something similar. But from a functionality point of view, I just wanted to say that's something different than what Lutz is working on.
Yeah, actually, if I might, from my point of view, it should stay in maybe cloud-centric repository, but outside of the KubeVirt core, since it's related to the cloud use cases and cloud management, basically. We also have the pet VMs cases, and that's a totally different kind of product and projects built on top of the same KubeVirt. So we don't really, we shouldn't mix all those cases into a single repository. Maybe cloud-related and pet VM-related helping tools should work together.
So regarding some functionality, I mean, the insight I'm currently missing is to understand, what are the technical differences between the Lutz approach and what you're doing with CCM or with the cloud provider. And I just wonder if there's overlap. I mean, if it does make sense, if the APIs are really distinct APIs, then it obviously doesn't make sense. But from the distance so far, I must admit I didn't read into the differences between the APIs. It looks like they're similar. That's only why I would like to clarify that point.
Yeah, just to maybe mention it in, let me try to summarize this in 2 or 3 sentences. So what the cluster API does, it is an API that allows you to manage clusters. So it can build up VMs, destroy them, and so on to scale your cluster and the stuff. But the cloud controller manager, the cloud provider does is, so it has a node controller and a service controller. What the node controller does, it initializes new nodes. So when a new node joins the cluster, it looks into the underlying cloud and, for example, assigns the region and zone labels. It looks into the instance type. So what flavor does the machine have? What's the node addresses, the host name, and so on. It also deletes the nodes if it sees that the VM disappears from the underlying cloud. And the other controller, the service controller, manages load balancers for services of type load balancer. So I mean, in this case here for KubeVirt, it would be just a service object that is deployed in the underlying Kubernetes cluster. So I would agree that it could make sense to have a joint cloud repository that hosts all this stuff. But I don't think that we have duplicated code here or duplicated functionality or anything like that.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification.
So I don't know, I mean, if people from Lutz, for example, or other people who are interested in doing such cloud-related work are at KubeCon, we could maybe discuss this, how it could make sense to organize such a repository. I think that might be a good idea. I'm not sure if somebody from them is here in the call now to comment on this.
So yeah, sorry, I'm typing and trying to keep up with the conversation, so I'm generally lagging. I personally feel this is a great proposal. I don't see the need, and this is me speaking personally, to try and conglomerate it into the KubeVirt repo. I also agree with you, Daniel. I don't see any reason to try and put it into a shared cloud functionality, in the sense that I mean, it's a unique thing right now. So I don't think we should be trying to fit it into a certain category, as opposed to just adopting it under the KubeVirt umbrella like you proposed, and going from there and seeing what happens.
Yeah, sorry, I was distracted for a moment. I think it's definitely something on the agenda which we can discuss at KubeCon. So we have the gathering there, and I know that people from Lutz will be there as well. So I think that's the right place to discuss it, and then we can take it from there to the mailing list.
Yeah.
So good. I'm happy to see that work. Cool.
All right. And so next up, we have a quick note on the KubeVirt operator, which Mark Sluter is running.
Yes. The thing is that we decided to move from the dedicated operator project, which is built with the operator SDK, to operator which is integrated directly in the KubeVirt repository. And we use there the tools we are familiar with, like the Go client informers and these things. The first milestones will be just create and delete a KubeVirt deployment. And later on, we also want to deal with updates together with the operator lifecycle manager. Yeah, I've already pushed the very first early version. The link is already in the document, so this is work in progress, but I will push from time to time so you can follow the progress. I think that's it.
Thank you, sir. Any questions about that? All right. A much less lively discussion. And next we have SRIOV, a quick update from EHAR.
So we've several requests recently for this. At this point, the only missing part is the way we fill in requests and limits for the SRV devices in for pods. And the assumption so far was that we will do it with a new Maltus webhook. There is code up for review for that from Intel guys in Maltus itself, but it seems like it's in limbo right now because there are some discussions of like moving it or parts of it in separate repos under networking working group umbrella, and then perhaps there will be two webhooks and we don't know where they will be located, so there will be some work to split it, and not sure like what's the timeline on that in what plans Intel has in these regards, like what's their ETAs. So there is an idea of putting some kind of a workaround in KubeVirt for the time being. It will be quite isolated, limited to SRV interfaces, and it shouldn't be huge. And then we can allow, the webhooks to actually flesh out, and it also simplifies for the time being the deployment of the whole thing, because the way you deploy a webhook is not exactly trivial. There are lots of moving parts there, and now they're splitting them into two pieces. So even if they, let's say, deliver that, like, I don't know, in a week, it's still, there's still some work there. It would be nice to have this last bit handled quicker, and it may be that the KubeVirt specific workaround is a better path. Obviously, in the future, we will, like, once we have the official webhooks and like the dust is settled, we will move to their implementation. But we can do something on our side for the time being. So yeah. Other than that, so there's no PR for that. I'm going to craft something today, and with that we were left with pieces like installer and CI. So on installer, I've posted a PR for Ansible playbooks that we have that will deploy SRV components. It's up for review. And I'm not sure like whether this is at this point we're talking about operators and whatnot. Is it like, should I also go and do something in operators? I'm a total newbie in terms of what operators are, so guidance on like what is considered to be like our way of deploying things and what I should cover would be appreciated. Is there any work that I should go and do in operator to claim SRV deployment is done? Because playbooks are working, but like I'm feeling that something is like happening with operators that I should also take care of.
Yeah, so I think operators always come. I mean, the problem with operators is that so many definitions of them. When I speak of operators, I mean declarative application life management using a Kubernetes controller pattern. So whenever you think of deployment, I think KubeVirt wants to line around operators. So effectively having controllers which look for definitions of how the application should be deployed, and the controllers do put the system into that state. So if we think about the SRV work, It's actually a good question. You know, if you want to say that is being covered from the Multus side, so that you say, you know, for the example, the Multus operator, if it's configured to support SRIV as well, then the Multus operator will take care to deploy the device plugins, for example. Or we say we do that from the KubeVirt side to say, you know, if you want to have SRV and Multus, then some KubeVirt operator does the configuration accordingly. But now speaking about it, I would rather say that would be something that should be solved in the Multus operator, because it's not specific KubeVirt, right? Any other Kubernetes cluster that wants to use Multus would need the same configurations, or similar, at least. Does it make sense?
Yeah. So in the meantime, like assuming we're going this route, I don't know whether it even exists, the Multus operator. But on KubeVirt side, do we like? It seems like the operator work that Mark is pursuing then is not relevant, exactly relevant, and I need to look into what we're doing for Multus already. We should do something already. We deploy it, right? So we can. Yeah, I don't know. Like, what's the scope of the operator work, Mark?
Yeah. So in contrast to the manifests we have today, operators are much more flexible. So for example, if we say having a Multus operator and getting this specific SRV device plugins covered by the Multus operator makes sense, but it will take some time. Then in the meantime, I mean, I wouldn't commit to it right now and we need to rate reviews, but what we could say is that in the meantime, we provide an option in the KubeVirt operator to deploy the relevant SRV device plugin. What I want to say is, the manifests we have today, they are not flexible at all, right? You deploy that one manifest and everything that's in it will be deployed. With operators, however, you have the ability to deploy the operator, but then configure, right, what you want to get deployed, like what feature gates you want to open. At least that's what I envision on the long run. It might take some time, but you know, you have options to choose from to get the system configured accordingly. And that is where I think SRV comes in, because I could see that we provide a way to, you know, trigger the deployment of the SRV device plugin as long as Multus doesn't do it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's a high level, you know, description of where we are. I still need. I will talk around. We'll try to understand where we stand here.
I mean, if you speak about operators in general, it's, I mean, we're getting started, right?
Okay. Yeah, I think it still makes sense to, you know, learn the playbook's fixes that I have. Yeah, and the last piece will be CI, and we're discussing how to do it right. There are some crazy ideas, like using the SRV components themselves to deliver physical functions into testing pods. So you would have SRV components on the cluster that starts the testing pods themselves, and then we could basically have two layers as inception. So this is still in discussion. We got a machine from StackPath. I've already played with it. It works. I could, you know, deploy a cluster, and VFs work all fine. So at this point, it's just figuring out like the final solution, and we're discussing that right now, and then implementing it. That's it.
Thank you. And thanks, Fabian. I think that discussion or that explanation of operators is quite helpful. Certainly helped me. Are there any comments from the group? Questions, concerns? All right, next topic. KubeCon's coming up next week. We have a few activities, and I will turn it over to Scott.
Hey, Stu. Thanks. Yeah, so going to have a pretty active KubeCon next week. Looking forward to seeing all the faces here on the call there. And we're going to start out with like two bird of a feather sessions. So these are going to be some pretty relaxed conversations that we have as a team. And we're just going to do like a quick demo of KubeVirt to introduce folks who don't know anything about it, and then talk about some use cases, and then wrap up with like some engaged Q&A, right? Like that's the goal. So we'll have some subject matter experts there to speak about things like, you know, storage, networking, roadmaps, things of that nature. Then we also have a gathering. The gathering is going to be on Tuesday, December the 11th, from 6:45 to 8:45 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. There will be food and refreshments there, so we hope to see you all there. And again, that's going to be another kind of informal discussion about, you know, where we want to take KubeVirt moving forward, and hopefully we'll get a lot of participation and folks showing up there. In addition, we're going to have 2 demos of KubeVirt at the Red Hat booth. Those are going to be on, I believe, Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning at 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And finally, 2 extra sessions and presentations. One is going to be connecting and testing virtual network topologies on Cube by Gage Osborne from OneSource Integrations. And then finally, running VM workloads side by side with container workloads by Sebastian from Loops. So hope to see everyone there. There is a blog post that's linked to in the agenda that you can get all of the information that I just talked about. So that's it, Stu.
Cool. The one thing that that bounced off me, what day of the week is the gathering?
The gathering is, it's in the blog post, and it's going to be December the 11th on Tuesday.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments on the overall agenda that week?
There will be very
Awesome. So is there anything else that we want to discuss in terms of the agenda notes? All right, move into the open floor. I'll turn it over to Fabian to talk about the Kata Coda POC.
Sure. It's really just a short heads up that I just to so just out of curiosity, I tried to run KubeVirt and Kata Coda because they have Kubernetes 101 sessions. And Kata Coda is effectively an interactive manual or tutorial for certain technologies, mainly on Linux, right? And KubeVirt just works. Yeah, that's it. Actually, let me add the second link to it. Why do I want to say it? Because it might be something in the community to, for example, have something alongside our demo. But after all, I'm not promoting to start any work on that right now, because after all, we need to test things, and having another thing would mean we need to test something else. But I think might be interested to other people who might want to create tutorials around their projects or products, which involves KubeVirt.
Cool, thank you. Anything else to discuss this week? All right, well, just a reminder, of course, not that we need it. We're entering the quieter portion of the year for some regions as Christian holidays approach. So we'll try and keep the same tempo, but, and you had something to say, Fabian?
Yeah, sorry, please go ahead, but then I just got another topic.
Darn mute button. No, go ahead.
Yeah, so for the holiday, I think we can, I was just taking a look. I think we probably want to cancel 2 meetings around the end of the year, like 26th and 2nd of January, because I suppose most people will be out. So I think we can cancel those, at least the 26th. The other thing is the release. KubeVirt 0.11, usually we release on a Monday, but we delayed that because the CI was not such a good shape, but due to Heroes, it's seeing a lot of improvements. And once we fix the major things, then we'll do a release. It will take place this week. So even if the CI is not getting much better, then we'll still do it. Because, yeah, but we want to see if we have some takeaways. And there was actually a blocker around libvirt where a version was removed, and we had to update it. That's it.
Thank you. All right. Is there anything else that we need to bring up this week? Cool. Well, thank you, everybody. And it's been a productive week. See you again next week.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.